Okay, yeah, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kijin Song, and I'm a postdoc researcher in the Urban Information Lab in the School of Architecture at UT Austin. Welcome to our lightning talk series on smart city research. This talk series is funded through the UT's Good System project. So we invite speakers from academia, industry, and the communities to share the research events and the needs related to the smart cities. So if you are interested in this topic, please feel free to visit our website for our past talks and other activities at smartcity.tech.utexas.edu. Today, we are very excited to have Ms. Emily Gates as our guest speaker. Emily is a head of service delivery for Transit, the North America's top-rated multimodal public transportation trip planning mobile app. She manages the partner success, user support, and project management teams, ensuring the successful delivery of all external services for transit agencies, partners, and users. So prior to her time at Transit, she was a data science manager and a director of operational strategies for Lyft bike and scooters and Motivate, and a former general manager of Hubway, the Boston metropolitan area bike share systems. She has a master's in transportation from MIT and a bachelor in industrial engineering from Northwestern. So her talk for today is titled What is GTFS-Flex and the Future of Rural Trip Planning in Transit App. So without further ado, I'll pass the mic to Emily.
Thank you so much. Hi, I am excited to talk to you today about a project that we are actually launching publicly next week. It is available in some cities right now, but we're not really talking about it. So you all are getting a sneak peek at what's going to be available loudly kind of next week. I first wanted to introduce Transit app. It is, as Kaijin mentioned, the #1 public transportation focused trip planning app in North America. We are available in over 300 metropolitan areas in 16 countries. This started out not the case. About 10 years ago, when Transit was formed in 2012, riders got their information from the bus stop from a paper schedule. Nothing was standardized. Now Transit, if it's not in Transit, it basically doesn't exist as far as we're concerned. And that really is focused on the city experience. The fixed route services that are available in cities, large and small, is our area of attention. And with this project, we had a shift in focus from just putting on our blinders to the rest of how people get around, and focused exclusively on the city experience, where you've got lots of options and it's good to see all of them. We consider ourselves a key piece for improving cities. But we are not the end-all be-all for public transportation and how it works throughout the world. As I mentioned in the talk that Kaijin gave, it's like nice to have, or it's nice to have these tools to help people get around. But if the service doesn't exist, then it doesn't help to put something shiny and pretty on top of non-existent service. We partner with over 100 transit agencies to be their official app. They sponsor our premium service Royale for all of their riders. And we are continuously working on our relationships with transit agencies to ensure that the data that is provided and also the data that and also the projects that they are working on are well represented within our app. In case you aren't aware, this is what the home screen looks like. I'm not going to spend too much time on functionality, but I encourage you to download it if you have not already. It works perfectly well in Austin, and you can see even the B-cycle system if that is of interest. We allow for multimodal trip planning, and that includes not only fixed route services, but also microtransit and book ahead services, which I'm going to talk about today, as well as taxis, scooters, bike share. If it rolls, we probably integrate it in some way. And we also provide cross-agency support. This is valuable in places that have a lot of overlapping services, like commuter buses that run in the same network as local buses, as commuter rail, as Amtrak. So we provide services across systems as well. We also support mobile ticketing for many of these systems. We have 70 agencies sell passes through transit today. As part of the project I'm going to talk about, we are bringing online, as of next week, another 5 ticketing integrations for these services that we're about to provide in order to bring even more of those services into one place and focus on MOS. What today's conversation is about is what to do about microtransit, what to do about things that are non-standard that we would love to be standard. So we do have microtransit integrations currently, but I'm going to start with like the basics because I know that this group has a variety of different stakeholders so in the smart cities landscape. And so I thought I would start at the very beginning, which is our Bible, GTFS, the General Transit Feed Specification. We were founded in 2012, as I mentioned, and at the time, data standards did not exist or were not well adopted for fixed route services at all. And there was this cool thing called Google Maps, and Google was like, if you want to be included in Google Maps, you need to provide data in a specific and standardized way. That way is GTFS, which originally stood for Google Transit Feed Specification, and then was adopted by the industry at large to allow for integration by apps such as ours. Today, about almost 100% of transit agencies produce their fixed route schedules in GTFS. However, this is a bus. This is a train. This is not something that you need to call ahead to book, and it will not allow somebody to come and pick up Bob for his dental appointment next Tuesday at 10 a.m. And is in need of some tweaking to provide these other services. So why should we care about GTFS at all? It basically allows for consistent information to be delivered to riders across different apps, across different websites, different versioning. It's really the way in which transit agencies communicate with us, but also with you all as researchers, and is the exact and defining agreed terminology in the same way that that your cell phone chargers used to look like a complete mess and now have really centralized around this USB-C concept. It's identical to that. What happens on the flexible service side is right at the beginnings of being able to be standardized. So before and currently, we are regularly integrating these flexible services. What is a flexible service? Anything that doesn't follow the same path every time. It looks a lot more like what Uber Pool used to look like. And now is the new hot thing in the transportation space, where transit agencies are every month asking us to integrate more and more of these services with more and more of these companies. And we are up to 20 or so integrations in the US and Canada across 4 different service providers. Now, what does that mean? Each of these service providers provides us custom information. We're tying into weird APIs that they have. They're creating strange customized versions of their APIs. And it's really anybody's game to go out and directly integrate. It means that transit agencies take a while to get started. If we don't work with one of their partners, they are basically gonna wait longer. There's going to be more confusion when things are broken. No one's going to know about it for a while. And so this is what all fixed route transit agencies were up to in 2012, 2013, 2014. And it has now expanded through the use of technology to a whole nother sector of the ball game, and includes dial-a-ride services. So this is an actual screenshot from the current schedule and contact us information from Morris Transit in Morris, Minnesota. They are designed to be printed out, I guess, and put in grocery stores and at doctors' offices, and it's a beautiful example of some lovely clip art that has not been updated since clip art was invented in 1991. And finding these services has been really challenging for everyone who lives in this part of the world and doesn't have access to their own car. It is complicated. You don't know how to use this service. It's not like there's a trip planner available on the Morris Transit website that allows you to say where you can go on the bus. If you are looking online, you can find almost no information about this service. And this is classic. This represents 1,000 transit agencies in the United States. Any place where it wouldn't occur to you to think about taking public transit, this is where this kind of service exists. And there are also ways that the community at large is trying to create a data standard to allow for those dial-a-ride services and the more tech savvy crew who's already on board, like Via, Rideco, like Spare, are all circling around what kind of ways they want to standardize this information in order to provide it both to apps like Transit as well as researchers. And what I'm going to talk to you today is about GTFS-Flex, which is what we were able to implement for these rural Minnesota transit agencies, but they are just the beginning for us and for providing more information of this new path towards data standardization for these services. I consider this to be welcome to the country. We have been city people our entire existence, and now we are getting out there, and the bus stops, if they look this good, are impressive. And we are working alongside Minnesota DOT, or working with Minnesota DOT alongside Cambridge Systematics, Trillium, which was bought by Optibus, and Token Transit, a mobile ticketing provider, to try out this new data standard and work out the kinks. we have spent the last 6 months or so working on this. And for the first time, any trip planning app has integrated this new service to try to display it as if it were a fixed route bus. So in this screen, you can see Smart. This is their fixed route services. Excuse me, this is their Flex services, which allow for point-to-point pickups alongside their fixed route bus services, like what you see here that is labeled Austin, which comes on a regular schedule and stops at fixed points. You can also, once you tap on a service like Rolling Hills Transit, which was also integrated as part of this project, you can specify your origin and destination, and from here, plan a trip that allows you to compare and contrast fixed route services alongside on-demand services, and call to book right from within the app. And as well as discover the places you can go. As you can see in the middle screen, there is a highlighted zone of all of the places you can go from your origin, and use the Rolling Hills Transit service to get there. And then all it takes is a simple tap to book that service. You don't have to call somebody and figure out whether or not you can get from Byron, Minnesota to St. Charles. It's all available within the app, just as if it were fixed route. You can also learn more about the service by tapping on the question mark. Instead of having to search down or write down the phone number off of the side of a bus and figure out whether or not it works for you, we are bringing vast amounts of discovery to something that previously only existed through kind of word of mouth or really desperate need for these services. It also allows for some, frankly, very strange routes. When you get into rural transit, public transit, you start to get a lot more like, I need to pick up Bertha on Saturday at 10, but then I can continue to run along the fixed route service and drop her off while I'm picking up other people along the way. And representing that in the data such that it can be ingested by apps like Transit is a complicated process and requires formalizing and standardizing a lot of the things that can be accommodated when somebody picks up the phone. So in this case, there is a type of service called deviated fixed route, like picking up Bertha at her house and then returning back to the originally scheduled route and making the originally scheduled stops along the way and dropping her off as if she were any other passenger. That is something that is easily accommodated when you call the number, but more challenging to represent when you're trying to say you can do this on the internet and this is the way that you would do it. This so far has run into some challenges. We got feedback from some transit agencies that we were working with that said, like, we'll pick up anybody in the state of Minnesota who wants to come back to our home base. And you know, transit doesn't want to say, hey, if you need a ride to Byron in Duluth, here is that service available, because our Duluth riders aren't thinking about how to get to Byron. They're thinking about how to move around their own system, around their own network. And so as we were implementing the display of the specification, as we were thinking about the data inputs to the specification with Trillium, we had to figure out, okay, what is reasonable? How can we maximize the amount of discoverability within the town of Byron without involving all of the riders in Duluth in the conversation? Other opportunities are you can represent the data in a number of ways, including like a display of zones, such that you could have, 3 zones in a row, like you would in a city where they had concentric circles and charged different amounts for going to different, lengths of distance away. But you want to allow for trips that go, in between zone A and B, and in between zone B and C, and in between A and C. But the specification doesn't account for these kinds of changes. And so it was like a iterative process to get us to the point where we could display trips that mattered, representing what was in people's heads, which is not written down anywhere, and making it clear to our users how we would think about this. It still does not have real-time information. We can't say or pick up somebody like, oh, in 4 minutes, a vehicle will be around you, because the GTFS-Flex specification as it's written today does not support any kind of real-time prediction information or vehicle location information. That's why we as an organization are encouraging the adoption of slightly more complex data standards, but that will come, and we all have to wait. Not to mention, on our side, we have always defined a transit agency in our database as having fixed route services, and over the course of implementing this project, found some transit agencies like Morris Transit, which are flex route only, and we just have no way of representing that outside of the standard sort of microtransit experience. And so that led to some confusion and thinking on our side about how we would implement this. And it hasn't even loudly launched to riders yet. So I can't wait for users of the system to give us all sorts of feedback that says, this doesn't make any sense to me. I have reverted back to calling Bob to pick me up on Tuesdays because I frankly can't understand how you have done this. And we will be iterating on all of these services for a long time, I imagine. What comes next? As I mentioned, the official launch of the Minnesota project is next week. And the University of Minnesota is collecting data from us and from riders directly over the course of the next year to give us feedback and do some analysis of how people are using it and how they're planning trips and how that has changed and how that varies from what they used to do before, and are they taking more trips? And functionality wise, Cambridge Systematics, who we are working with, is currently building an open trip planner, web trip planner component to allow for these trips to be planned on the web as well as within transit. And they are also building a booking module to allow for classic millennials like me to not want to call anyone when doing anything ever, and allow for the booking of these services online, and exposing that booking process through transit. And transit, we are encouraging more agencies to work off of this standard and help us improve it, and now provide direction to how they can improve it for data ingesters like us. So that's all I had. I am happy to answer any questions about either the app or this project, or about living in Montreal, whatever you're interested in.
Thank you so much, Emily. It was a fascinating talk. I'll just wait to see if there is any questions from the audience.
Katie, I have a question.
Yeah.
Welcome, Emily, and thank you for the nice talk. I'm Professor Junfeng Zhou. I'm a director of a smart city consortium at UT. A quick question for you. who is funding the project, and we're the user. I guess we're the app running by transit or running by Ministry DOT after a trial period. So I just want to see the big picture of the project.
Sure. So Transit is a standalone private company. However, we also do not do very much custom work for projects like this. We use projects like this to fund our development of features that could be easily replicable in the rest of our work. This project is funded through 2 FTA grants that were applied for and won by Minnesota DOT. One of them is an AIM grant, Accelerating Innovation and Mobility grant, and I don't actually remember the other one. It was focused on the mobile ticketing component of the project, and it has been administered through Minnesota DOT. We are a subcontractor to Cambridge Systematics, who was the prime on the bid, but this allowed us to now expand this kind of functionality to many more transit agencies without having to go through the pain and anguish of implementing them all individually.
Thank you. That makes sense. A very quick follow-up questions. We have a Uber and a Lyft for short distance urban travel, and as you well know, in the rural areas, you have this call for rider service, and there, I sense there's a demand for long-range rider-share service. What do you think about this? Do you know any practitioner or company or nonprofit doing that long-range shared rider service in the rural countries?
Yeah, so we do integrate Uber and Lyft APIs currently within the app, and so if Uber and Lyft or Lyft are providing that service within our app in that area, we will already display it. There are some of these rural providers actually do provide those services for people who live in those areas. We are currently having a negotiation about the bounds of the allowable trip plan distance within our application. We had already expanded it from 250 kilometers to 300 kilometers to support this project, to provide trip plans that took you longer distance. And that way we could expose some of these larger area trip planning providers to that space. Private organizations, I imagine that if you worked with any of these microtransit providers and you specified that you wanted your zone to be the entire state of Minnesota, that you could. And in fact, I think Prairie 5 Rides is one of the transit agencies that does want us to display basically the entire state as the zone. And so you can plan a trip from rural Minnesota to anywhere else in Minnesota. You just can't plan it back right now.
Thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you for the nice talk.
All right. And next question is from Katie.
Yes, thanks, Emily. Really appreciate you being here and talking to us today. I am a graduate student in the Community and Regional Planning program here at UT, and myself and 2 other students were working on a project for our Smart City Practicum, which is actually led by Dr. Zhao, that was just asking that previous question. So we're working on creating a mobility as a service program in the context of UT's campus right now. So we've been working with Cap Metro. I guess I'm just kind of curious your experience with transit. I guess like firms' willingness to work with you. Like obviously transit is very, very successful at like getting all of these APIs from everybody. And I know from like a transit agency perspective, maybe people are very willing to do this. And obviously you have been successful getting micromobility providers and Uber and Lyft, but I guess I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that experience. Like, was that really difficult or were people willing super easily to share that with you, or what does that process look like for you?
Sure. So there was we've gone through phases of the life cycle of the app where we are consistently working to expand the data standards as we expand our work in the hopes that we can encourage cities and transit agencies to require this kind of data standard from providers of the services who are in particular regions. One of the things that was a very big deal when I was working in bike share was the development and implementation of the GBFS specification, which is it used to be the general bike share feed specification, and now it is something that includes scooters. I don't remember what the new title is for GBFS. But part of the reason why that standard was developed was because they acknowledged and recognized that if cities could accept a standardized version of information and build off of it, that the bike share operators and the scooter share operators would not have to provide special unique things to anybody who asked for it. So there was a period of time in transit's history where advocating for open micromobility data standards was very big, and now I think something like 80% of the municipalities like require open GBFS to be provided for all of their microtransit services. And then it's really the responsibility of the municipalities to hold the operators to providing it. Some who really get it, share it with us and we don't have to fight for it. Some do not do that. And then we are relying on the municipalities to lay down the law, so to speak, and say, like, this was a requirement. Now, we are starting to see the same thing on the flexible services side. So it is getting into the term GTFS-Flex and GOFS and GOFS Lite are showing up in RFPs, are showing up in permit application requirements, criteria, so that researchers like you could go to a URL on the city website and get access to the data that you need. I would encourage you as part of this project to contact the city agency and responsible for operating the services or overseeing the services. They can point you in the correct direction for these services and lay down the law with the operators themselves.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, I just want to mention we had a lot of students and graduates really interested in the transit mass mobility service, and they have a very good skills. If your company had any opening, let us know. We will recommend some very good student to you.
Thanks. I'll pass that along to the team's hiring in the right parts of the organization. I typically am hiring like user support people, so I'm not sure that you're interested in them necessarily for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. It was a very interesting discussion. I think we are already at the time to wrap up. So yeah, I want to stop here. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to Emily. You can see her email address on the slide. If you miss it, then you can also feel free to contact us to get her email. We are happy to contact you with Emily as well. So, all right. Thank you so much, Emily, for your wonderful talk today. I'll post the video file on our website soon. And if you are also interested in our future talk, you are also welcome to visit our website at smart.tech.utexas.edu to see our past recordings and also any information for the future talk. And our next presentation will be held on March 10th with Nathan Shea from Streetlight. He'll talk about the current Streetlight projects on transportation analytics using the big data. So thank you everyone for joining the talk, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.